Take a look at this clip.
No, you don't.
Does it look suspicious? What if I told you this person was using cheats? Well, they are, as the person is me, using an aimbot I developed in a couple days and have been using for months without any fear of being banned. No one would have ever questioned a play like this in a game, and if someone was playing well and hitting all their shots, they would just be praised for being cracked and good at the game. In recent times, I felt more and more like I was running into suspicious players that were performing in a way that just didn't feel like the usual Smurfs, but anytime I called out the behavior to my fellow teammates, they brushed it off as a player who was just good. But as someone who used to play a lot of Counter Strike, a game that is washed in cheating, there were times when I'd run into some players that just felt the same. I had done my fair share of dabbling in Counter Strike hacks in the past, especially on the old HVH servers. And sometimes you just kind of know something isn't right. The inner engineer in me questioned what it would take to circumvent the Valorant anti-cheat, and if I could do it easily enough, how widespread could cheating be? During this journey, I began to find others who were also cheating at the game. Meeting these individuals helped me uncover massive private Discord servers and cheat forums with thousands of members. In this video, I will explain to you how thousands upon thousands of people circumvent Valorant's anti-cheat every day, and how they operate in their cheating communities. This video will serve as a basis and lay the foundations for all other videos I post on this channel. This video will be long, as we will be taking a deep dive into the world of cheating at tactical FPS games, especially how cheaters circumvent invasive anti-cheats like Vanguard and Faceit. Future update videos on the cat and mouse game between anti-cheat devs and cheat developers will reference this deep dive video. There will be video chapters below on each subject we will be tackling today, so stay tuned to the channel as we are just getting started. Back on subject, ever since the release of Valorant, the game's anti-cheat, Vanguard, has been touted as being one of the best multiplayer anti-cheat systems to date. Vanguard is one of the most rigorous and intrusive anti-cheat systems out there, and has been praised to be able to catch even the most sophisticated of cheats. But it is this intrusive nature that lets Vanguard work well. It is able to beat the game of the one who loads first and nip any cheat in the butt, or so we think. Because if there is one thing that is true about multiplayer games, if there is an anti-cheat, cheaters will find a way around that anti-cheat. The extreme nature of Vanguard has given the Valorant community a false sense of security. They believe Vanguard to be almost impenetrable. There is no way that cheaters can last long before Vanguard stops them, right? I installed this rootkit and Chinese spyware on my PC specifically to avoid the cheating issues I have experienced in other games. I left Counter Strike for this. Unfortunately, the truth is cheating is fairly prevalent in Valorant, just as it has been in every competitive game. So let's begin by going back in time. Before there was Valorant, there was Counter Strike. I was but a young girl. The Twin Towers were still standing, and my grandfather had given me a couple of non-running computers, but he told me I could have them if I could figure out how to make one work. I recall learning how to build my first PC with those parts so that I could play video games with my cousins. One afternoon, my aunt took us out to let us buy video games. We wanted something we could all play together, and it was there that I picked up my first copy of Counter Strike, which I still have to this day. This was during the console era, internet access was limited, and video games were largely considered to be a social activity you did in person. For the best multiplayer experiences, we used to have LAN parties, or we would beg our parents for money to go to the gaming cafe. We would order snacks and balls, and everyone would then have some fun. But even back then, people would find ways to gain an unfair competitive advantage, usually through the means of exploiting glitches and bugs. You'd either laugh at it because it was dumb, or they could be rage-inducing, and you'd go over to them, punch them in the arm, and scream directly in their face, telling them to stop, because what they were doing was annoying, unfair, and they were stupid. Then you'd make your own server and convince your friends to join it instead. But as the LAN era gave way to the online era, cheats, or hacks as we called them, would become more prominent. Back then, anti-cheat systems were fairly rudimentary, and player bans were pretty short. For example, the earliest VAC implementation for CS only banned players for about 24 hours. Servers were community-owned and moderated back then. If someone was hacking, you'd just report them to the server admin and go play on another server till the hacker got banned. However, there were even servers where hackers could play against one another on servers designated as hack versus hack, or HVH. But things really started to change when official matchmaking for competitive video games became the standard, and Counter Strike was no exception to this rule. In 2012, CS:GO was released with official matchmaking servers. This gave players the ability to join a comp game at the press of a button. You no longer had to join a league or clan and spend weeks planning a match on forums and IRC for matchmaking. But with competitive modes and player ranks came a new wave of cheating, and eventually cheating in CS:GO would plague the game in almost every lobby. From the casual ones to the very top of the competitive ladder in esports. Cheating in CS:GO was so prominent because of the poor way in which its anti-cheat system, VAC, operated. It primarily focused on detecting cheats through its application signature and banning that particular user account if they used the cheat. But VAC couldn't actively detect if a cheat was being loaded into the process or accessing the game's memory. I remember cheating becoming so bad that I started using an alternative account to play CS. I altered and compiled my own external hack that ran on my Linux machine. And whenever someone began cheating on the opposing team, I would target them with my own cheat. This account lasted hundreds of hours before it was finally banned through the Overwatch manual review system. Valve official servers had become a joke, and all official servers seemed to be an HVH experience. Cheating was so popular that there were even HVH tournaments, and if you weren't using Skeet and didn't have a low UID, then you were nothing. But that's a story for another video.
Baby, with your milkshake, you get skeeted on. Thanking you the shit, girl, you get skeeted on. Walking on your feet, girl, you get skeeted on. You get skeeted on. You get skeeted on. My real bigger than yours, you get skeeted on. Money longer than yours, you get skeeted on. Brought your pistol, I got a chopper, get skeeted on.
Real progress against cheaters was being made by third-party matchmaking services, with names like Faceit and ESEA creating their own root-level anti-cheats and hosting their own matchmaking services for serious players and the professional scene. However, these third-party anti-cheats were mainly geared towards professional players and the esports scene. During the early years of CS:GO, cheating had become so common on official VAC servers that invasive kernel-level third-party anti-cheats had become a necessity to ensure competitive integrity in Counter Strike esports. Many non-professional players also chose to install these highly specialized and invasive anti-cheats to get away from the cheaters on official matchmaking servers. But these services did require separate subscriptions and client software for the players to take advantage of all they had to offer. In 2016, however, official matchmaking would improve to a degree with the implementation of verified prime matchmaking. But the question of whether or not the enemy was cheating was always on the mind when one queued on official servers. But hope was on the horizon for the casual player as a new game was about to be born. Enter Project A.
Hey everyone, I'm Anna, and I'm the executive producer on one of those games you just saw, codenamed Project A. We've talked about our philosophy on developing new games here at Riot, but I figured we could also show you some. We're making new games, and this one's different, so now let's talk about the cheaters. We know you hate second-guessing if you really lost, or if someone was running an aimbot or a wall hack. From day one, we have put anti-cheat at the forefront of our development, and we will do whatever it takes to preserve the integrity of your matches. We want to be firm in our commitment here, because this matters to us, and we know it really matters to you.
Valorant was Riot's take on a Counter Strike-like game, but with a modern twist on the genre. The game shared Counter Strike's mechanics, but had waifus. Wait, where have I seen this before? Oh, right. Moving on. From the very beginning, from the very announcement of the game, Riot had one clear goal in mind: to create a highly competitive game that would not be plagued with the cheating problem Counter-Strike had. To accomplish this, they developed the Anti-Cheat Vanguard. Like Faceit and ESEA Anti-Cheats, Vanguard was built as a root-level anti-cheat in an attempt to snuff out even the most elaborate of cheats to ensure the integrity of competitive play at the highest level. To achieve this feat, Kernel Anti-Cheats run at the root level, loading into the operating system kernel during boot up. We can understand this concept by simply looking at computer systems' hierarchical protection domains, commonly called protection rings, and where kernel ACs load within these rings. Computer operating systems offer varying degrees of system resource access through the implementation of protection rings, which constitute hierarchical levels of privilege within a computer system's architecture. This hierarchy is typically enforced at the hardware level, often by CPU architectures that incorporate distinct CPU modes in their hardware or microcode. Rings are arranged in a hierarchy from most privileged, typically numbered 0, to least privileged, typically designated with the highest ring number. In the majority of operating systems, ring 0 holds the highest level of privilege, allowing it to directly interface with physical hardware components. Vanguard has drivers that load during the system boot in ring 0 with the kernel. If that doesn't make sense, just understand this. By starting before any other process, Vanguard has the ability to catch cheats before they even load, and can keep tabs on all your system processes and how they access your application memory, which in turn allows the anti-cheat to make sure cheats aren't writing or accessing memory space when Valorant is running. Of course, this method of anti-cheat isn't without controversy, as it is basically a rootkit, and if used incorrectly, can monitor everything you do on your computer. At least Vanguard isn't mining for shitcoins on your PC. I mean, no one has taken advantage of root-level privilege before, right? Especially not a well-known third-party Counter-Strike kernel-level anti-cheat used in the pro leagues. No! Vanguard promised to be different.
Like that's ever gonna happen.
So how do cheaters get around kernel anti-cheats that seemingly know everything? There are many ways people cheat the system to gain a competitive advantage, from actions as innocent as bind jump throws all the way to DMA hardware. So let's start with the most innocent of ways. A bind to get consistent lineups is hardly considered a cheat. Timing your lineup takes skill, but by simply binding your jump and throw keys close together, you can very easily get a consistent jump throw. This might seem innocent, but such binds have been banned in competitive play before in Counter-Strike. But the use of external software can also be used to rebind keys so that you only have to press one key for a jump throw. But these kinds of key remapping can also be used for other actions, like bunny hopping. Most mouse software today ships with functionality that allows for user-defined mouse macros. For example, binding your mouse wheel to jump constantly, creating perfect bunny hop macro without the need to learn the timing yourself. Mouse macros have not been blocked by Riot, nor have they taken any action to ban users to use macros for actions like this. But things can get a little more questionable when you have mouse software that can run scripts that perform mouse movement functions. Basic anti-recoil scripts can be easily programmed for Razer mice. A script can be toggled to pull down the mouse for you, effectively eliminating recoil. These kinds of scripts aren't going to get you far in the ranks, as eventually most players learn how to control recoil on their own. But it is a way some people exploit the system by letting software do the work for them. It should be noted that Riot patched the Logitech Lua scripts, but for some reason the Razer XML scripts still work. But for anyone serious about cheating, there's nothing better than an aimbot, trigger bot, or one of the most powerful cheats of all, the Extra Sensory Perception Cheat, aka ESP. There is one thing all of these cheats traditionally need: access to the game's memory space. The video game's client-side application will store critical game information in the temporary memory, such as player information, their health, and their location. The game obtains enemy player information from the server encrypted in packets, and those packets are then loaded into the memory to be processed by the game itself through system API calls. To resolve enemy location, a cheat will need to access and read the game's memory, thus obtaining the enemy location in 3D space, which can then be processed by the cheat program for ESP, aimbot, or triggerbot. There are two ways cheats can access this memory: externally or internally. On an external cheat, the cheat program runs as a separate process, makes the same system API calls to read into the game's memory space, and resolves enemy player locations. On the other hand, internal cheats are injected into the game client. They are able to read and write to the application memory through the actual game instance by hooking function calls, and can resolve a lot more information with less latency and more accurately, allowing for more responsive and sophisticated cheats. However, a good anti-cheat can usually detect these kinds of anomalies, and cheaters who use external cheats that read from the game's memory using standard system calls, or inject internal cheats into the game will get caught fairly quickly. So how would a cheat hook into system calls if root-level anti-cheats can detect them? Cheaters can use drivers that load before the kernel loads, abusing the Extensible Firmware Interface Mappings, or EFI. At the heart of this cheating method lies the enigmatic EFI mapper. This tool effectively maps custom-made Windows drivers, rendering them invisible to the anti-cheat and even Windows itself, as the drivers masquerade as Windows drivers. By initiating the EFI mapper before Windows boot, cheat drivers can successfully hide themselves as a Windows driver. This clandestine operation allows cheaters to read memory within the game and run cheats that can hook into seemingly innocent system calls that are secretly accessing game memory. These cheats take longer to detect, as a root-level anti-cheat must find patterns among reported cheaters who all use the same cheat and then detect the signature of the application performing the cheat. To try and fight this problem, anti-cheats like Vanguard force all Windows 11 computers to use Secure Boot and TPM 2.0, as this will enforce clean EFI booting, preventing malicious drivers from loading prior to the kernel. However, people who cheat regularly will simply install Windows 10 and disable Secure Boot, as Vanguard cannot force Secure Boot for Windows 10. More recently, cheaters have started using cracked and custom recompiled versions of Windows. This allows cheaters to even use Windows 11 with their custom EFI drivers, as the cheaters are using their own repacked versions of Windows that they have full control over. Because detection of some of these cheats can take some time, cheaters will use a specific cheat release with an alt account till the cheat gets detected and their account and HHIDs are finally banned, which can be weeks at a time. At this point, you'd think it's game over for the cheater, right? After all, Vanguard bans cheaters based on their physical hardware components identified by their computer's hardware IDs, right? Well, as it turns out, it's very easy to spoof the hardware IDs. Cheaters will simply spoof their HHIDs once the cheat they are using has been detected, and cheat developers will develop and build a new cheat that will need to be detected all over again. Cheaters will then continue to cheat on a new account. Riot has been attempting to curb HHID spoofing by requiring TPM 2.0, which uses a TPM module which forces hardware uniqueness, but cheaters have simply discovered they can boot from a USB drive, spoof their hardware before their OS boots, and then continue to boot from their Windows partition. Third-party Counter Strike kernel-level anti-cheats, like Faceit, have curbed this issue by banning more component-based hardware IDs, making it more difficult and potentially more expensive for cheaters to create new computer identities through spoofing or replacing hardware components. Faceit also has stricter regulation on sign-ups of new accounts, requiring phone verification and payment verification. Due to these stricter requirements, it's less common to see cheaters use EFI-based cheats on Faceit servers. But EFI-based cheating is one of the more common ways to cheat at Valorant, as Riot's HHID bans are limited to larger components of the PC that are easy to spoof, and Riot does not require phone verification to play on ranked servers. Most cheaters are usually obtaining their cheats through a cheat reseller who distributes these cheats from a cheat developer, and they pay monthly subscriptions to keep the cheat development going. Once a cheat like this is detected, an entire wave of cheaters who are using the same cheat can be banned. Many cheat developers will also exit scam their buyers once the cheat is detected. They will then create a new loader or cheat program and resell the cheat again under a new name. One thing I noticed while browsing through these cheating communities was how closely they were linked to booster services and account resellers. It seems a portion of their paying user base for these kinds of cheats consist of account resellers who use cheats to place accounts in particular ranks. Many of these accounts are then bought by boosters who use the purchased accounts with cheats to then duo with a customer's account to boost it into a higher rank. However, the boosting industry and how it affects ranked play is an entirely different can of worms and out of the scope of this video. If there is interest, I can make a video just on this subject. Now, what if someone wanted to cheat on their main? For players who want to cheat competitively on Faceit, ESEA, or on Valorant to impress others, or even cheat in professional tournaments, how would they do so if their account would simply get banned if the cheat got detected? Well, frankly put, you would need a cheat that is able to access and process application memory deeper than the anti-cheat. But when an anti-cheat is loading at the kernel level, it's harder to go lower than that, right? Well, you'd be wrong, because there is a layer deeper than the deepest software layer, even deeper than the negative ring layers, and that layer is the physical hardware itself. If an anti-cheat needs to run on your PC to detect a cheat, what if you ran your cheat on another computer? That's exactly what cheaters started doing to get around third-party root-level anti-cheats in Counter Strike. To accomplish this, cheaters install a direct memory access controller directly into their PCI slot on their computer. the DMA controller can directly access the memory bus and pull the data directly from your computer's RAM, effectively bypassing the CPU and bypassing the operating system completely. There is no way for the anti-cheat to detect that the memory was accessed and pulled from, as long as the operation only reads from the target computer's memory. Once the memory is pulled by the DMA device, a copy of the memory can be sent to a second computer to process that memory. A program on the second computer can scan that memory copy for the allocated region the game process writes to, and a cheat program will then be able to resolve information such as player location, health, or other game assets. A visual representation of this data can be shown on a second monitor for the cheater to visualize. This gives cheaters a safe way to have radar ESP without fear of the anti-cheat catching them. But DMA cheats aren't limited to just radar ESP. A DMA cheat can also provide wall hacks. To accomplish this, a video overlay box is needed. One feed is sent from the clean PC showing the game's output, and the second feed from the cheat PC, which shows the locations of enemy players in 3D space. The two feeds are then combined and shown on one monitor. There is no way for the clean PC to know the video output is being merged with enemy player locations that were resolved by the dirty PC. Last but not least, DMA cheats can also provide aimbot hacks through the use of a microcontroller. A microcontroller spoofed with mouse hardware IDs is plugged into the clean PC so that it only sees a mouse plugged into the COM port. The real mouse is also plugged into the microcontroller to give real user input. Finally, the dirty PC is plugged into the microcontroller, providing resolved enemy player locations. When the cheater clicks the mouse near an enemy, the microcontroller can correct the mouse movement to hit the enemy using the enemy player location data that is fed to the controller from the cheat PC. To try and combat DMA cheating, root-level anti-cheats try to detect the existence of a DMA device installed on the computer. Since the anti-cheat cannot detect the DMA memory reads, the anti-cheat will instead scan for DMA hardware. Purpose-built DMA devices may be detected and blocked if using default firmware. To avoid detection, cheaters will flash custom firmware to their DMA devices to spoof the device as another component, like a network controller. Riot Games Vanguard has been especially aggressive at combating DMA cheating, and there has been a lot of drama between anti-cheat devs and cheat devs around the effectiveness of Vanguard against DMA methods, force loading IOMMU, the busmaster bit flip, and so on. But such a topic is out of scope for this video. As of today, as long as a DMA device is properly spoofed with correctly flashed firmware, it will be able to bypass Vanguard. DMA cheating has one major drawback: price. DMA hardware is very expensive, as you need a second PC. The DMA controller by itself typically costs $400 USD. Additional hardware to enable wall hacks and aimbot can set you back another $500 USD. To top it off, monthly subscriptions from a DMA cheat provider can also be expensive. Due to the high cost of entry, running into a cheater using DMA cheats is fairly uncommon, and it can be argued that smurfing is much more disruptive to competitive play in comparison. This is especially true in Valorant, where the developers chose to ignore the smurfing issue altogether. To reduce costs, some DMA cheats loop the resolved game data back to the game PC, and a separate process on that PC uses that data to perform the cheats. The downside to this method is that there is still the possibility for the application running on the game PC to be detected by the anti-cheat, rendering this method more risky. But what if a cheater wanted a method that was safe but also inexpensive? Without a DMA device, there would be no safe way to read from the game's memory space. Instead, one would need a cheat that could operate without needing access to the game's memory. And cheaters found a way to do just that through a method called visual cheats. Visual cheats use the screen output as the basis for the cheats. Aimbots and trigger bots can be easily created through visualization of what is being displayed on the cheater's screen. They cannot be used for other cheats like wall hacks, as they cannot resolve game data from the memory. One of the simplest visual cheat is developed through the use of AHK Scripting, or AHK. AHK is a scripting platform used for automation of applications and mouse movements. When Valorant was first released, cheaters discovered they could write simple AHK scripts to move the mouse to where the enemy was showing up on screen by tracking the enemy outline colors. However, Riot eventually patched such AHK mouse movements, and players caught using such functions were banned. While AHK aimbots were easily patched, simple AHK trigger bots continue to be a method cheaters use to this day. Cheaters simply rebind their shoot key to a keyboard button and have the AHK script press that key when the mouse cursor moves over the colored outline of an enemy. This gets around the detected and blocked mouse movement functions, and for some reason, Riot has not found a way to block this method of cheating. Because AutoHotkey has many legitimate uses, Riot does not ban users who have it installed. It's widely believed by the cheating community that running AHK while Valorant is running can trigger red flags by Vanguard. This can lead to manual account reviews, which can result in manual bans if the trigger bot was too blatant. But many cheaters still swear by AHK scripts to this day, and it is without a doubt one of the more popular methods of cheating at Valorant. AHK scripts can be very easily distributed and are easy to use. Their widespread proliferation means anyone can find and use one, often without having to pay a dime.
Someone might be flanking though. Okay.
The concept of developing a cheat that uses the colored outline as a means of identifying an enemy player has lived on with pixel bots. To avoid using the AutoHotkey software, pixel bot cheats are instead developed as standalone programs. These cheats capture the screen input, identify the colored outline of the enemy in the captured frames, and automatically correct the mouse to the enemy player. However, simple pixel bot cheats can still be detected if the cheat calls mouse movement functions.
On my way.
There is one simple and cheap solution to this, and that is to process pixel data and move the mouse using a spoofed microcontroller. When I was first attempting to find a solution to bypass Vanguard, my first development method involved capturing a small section of my screen around the crosshair and streaming that data to a Raspberry Pi, which is a cheap, single-board computer. On the Pi, I would process the small captured pixel data, find the colored enemy outlines, and send the pixel locations to a spoofed microcontroller. This microcontroller was also plugged into my main PC and would correct my mouse movements. That was all the hardware I needed for a safe, undetectable aimbot, a $40 Pi and a $40 microcontroller. In order to find other cheaters, I began playing in and subsequently dominating in deathmatch servers, adding anyone in those servers who I suspected of cheating. After queuing and playing a couple games with these suspected cheaters, I narrowed out the ones I was certain were actually cheating and revealed to them that I was using a cheat. Cheating communities have a sense of camaraderie, and when they find out another person is also a cheater, they are typically very willing to open up about being a cheater as well. After I joined their cheating Discord servers, I found that many cheaters were using either AHK trigger bots or they were using single-board Arduino microcontrollers. The Arduino cheats especially interested me, as they were much like the aimbot I created, but simplified. The Arduino aimbots were by far the most popular. These functioned by having a screen capture program send captured screen data over a USB COM port to an Arduino. While not as safe as the cheat I developed, these cheats were much more responsive as they sent and retrieved data over a singular USB COM port, and cheaters have been using them for years without any fear of being banned. These controllers are also cheap, with brand name Arduinos selling for just over $20. However, off-brand boards from China can be purchased for a fraction of the price and can even be found with waifus printed on the boards. The main safety concern many of these cheaters had was that Vanguard could possibly detect 2 mice plugged in and determine one mouse was correcting aim. To solve this problem, many cheaters solder USB host shields to their Arduino microcontrollers so that their PC only reads one mouse input. There is some concern that anti-cheats could detect screen data being transmitted over a COM port. Streaming over socket is considered to be much more safe, as socket is the same way commercial streaming software exports captured screen data. In recent times, network microcontrollers like the Pi Pico have emerged with built-in Wi-Fi chips. These controllers have become increasingly popular as they allow cheaters to stream their screen data to the microcontroller, which will then correct the mouse movement. These cheat methods are not limited to just Valorant. Many cheat providers now provide what they call AI identification cheats. These cheats detect enemy players through the use of shape identification. Microcontrollers have long been used by players to cheat at Counter Strike on Faceit servers, with early rudimentary cheats designed to be toggled manually by the cheater while holding an angle, as a trigger bot activates when any movement comes across the screen. But with recent developments of AI shape detection cheats, microcontroller-based aimbots are becoming much more common and have replaced these old basic trigger bots on Faceit servers. Despite all of these workarounds for root-level anti-cheats, players rarely complain about cheating on servers that utilize such anti-cheats. This may in part be due to the fact that players do not encounter blatant wall hackers, spin botters, or recoilless aimbots that snap to their heads through memory writes. This gives players the perception that they are not playing against cheaters when many times they are, and instead they write the cheater off as a smurf. However, it can also be said that if an anti-cheat is effective enough to bring most cheaters down to the same level as a smurf, perhaps such an anti-cheat is good enough for casual ranked play. While such anti-cheats still have their flaws and could definitely be improved through better pixel bot detection or spoofed controller detection, at least the game experience isn't riddled with blatant rage hackers we experience on official servers of other games. Perhaps one day, our beloved game will be fixed. And remember, only poors cheat on alts. If you're going to cheat, you better do it on your main with thousands of dollars worth of skins. I love you all. Rem out.